Most of you guys know me as the award-winning published photographer out here in Asbury Park and other areas, but you know, my life is a lot more than just that. I come from a world of addiction and alcoholism. I had many dark years. All those years is what actually made me who I am today. I was always a very social kid. I was always a very energetic kid. You know, I went through all my school years kind of skating by. My mother worked in the school system, so school for me was a piece of cake. I ended up going into the electrical union at 19 years old as a result of nothing else to do. I was very well liked as a kid, so I was also not afraid to go out by myself. I would go to clubs by myself, I would go to bars by myself, I would hang out in different neighborhoods, and then one day everything just kind of went downhill from there. The beginning of the drinking and drugging year, it was casual, you know, it was fun times, it was going out to clubs, it was partying with my friends, it was the usual stuff that most of us do regularly. When that time came for everybody else to be done with it, I wasn't done with it. I would just literally party all night long till 3 o'clock in the morning, go home for an hour, and an hour later I'm back on the bus to New York City. That was just a revolving cycle that I just thought was normal and fun. The last 3 or 4 years of it, the fun was gone. It was, to me, just a necessity at that point. Every day, whether I got high or not, I spent every waking moment thinking about it. How am I going to get high? Who am I going to call? I was literally walking around the streets of East Flatbush, Brooklyn, sweeping storefront sidewalks for $1. There were times I went into parts of Brooklyn and just literally pull rings off my hand and hand them over for a hit of crack. You know, diamond rings, rings that were handed to me from relatives. There were times where I literally walked over bodies with needles in their arms. There were days where I would have to urinate in apartment building lobbies. They put me in a place that I never thought I was coming back from. You sit there and you just say your life is going nowhere. The good thing for me was I ended up learning how to live before it was too late. At that point in time, nothing would have got me clean. I ended up going into 2 30-day rehabs in the 80s. Both of them really didn't do much for me, but they kind of, what we call, planted the seed. I did realize that my life had to change for the better. There was a point in time where I was actively in the meetings. One day this guy presented himself to me and he just started telling me things about himself. And he was the turning point really in my life of getting me to realize that in order for me to live a life different than what I was, I needed to put things in my life that were worthwhile to me, things that made me feel part of, things that made me feel like I was being a productive member of society. You know, those were all the things I really wanted as a kid but never got. For the first time in my life, the answers were left up to me. One day I just decided to take my son to a concert. I found out about this club in Sayreville called Starland Ballroom. I thought this could be a father-son activity that we do together. So we went to a few shows and we had a great time seeing live music as I really never saw it before. And before you know it, we were going to about 100 shows a year as just fans. Actually, the very first shirt that my son wore to Starland Ballroom, And as you can see, all these names on the shirt are just bands that we saw. The bands would come over and want to look at the shirt. There's some autographs on here. Beefcake from Guar, Roger from Less Than Jake, Twisted Sister, Fuel, Seasin, Joan Jett. And this shirt became something very kind of relevant in his life and ours. Somebody just mentioned to me, why don't you just shoot the shows professionally? I remember coming across this publication and I sent them an email, and this woman wrote me back very nicely and said, I really love what you do with your son. Maybe I could put you down as a staff photographer and help you get some press passes. And the next thing I know, I was shooting for a publication called AMP Magazine. And I think I shot about 80 shows in the next 100 days. There wasn't a day that went by that I didn't want to be at a show taking pictures of a band.
Before I worked here at Starland Ballroom, I hosted a local music show called Jersey Rock. We would always help judge a contest called the Break Contest in Asbury Park, which was where bands got to open up for Bamboozle Festival. And that is actually where I first met Jeff. I don't know a lot of photographers that have the dedication that Jeff does. As time goes on, I see him more and more. As with other people, sometimes they tend to gradually take a step back. He doesn't miss a beat.
When Hurricane Sandy hit, Starland Ballroom decided to renovate their place, so they went down for about a year. And I remember, like, what do I do? Where do I go? And somebody had said, why don't you come out to Asbury? They have this really cool music scene out there. And I'm like, yeah, Asbury. You know, that was like, that's Asbury.
Jeff has a very open personality, and that's huge because it's a very social business. He's very passionate about what he does, so his work speaks for itself. He comes to the Pony and he covers the newest of new bands, the biggest of national tours, and I love that about him because he's just, he's diversified. He's into all of it.
Everybody out here made me feel so welcome. To be such a part of the scene out here was just mind-boggling to me. You know, I dedicated my life to this over the last 7 years. You know, how could I ever give this up? It's like the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. You know, to have a place to come every day of my life and be welcomed and to be liked and to be part of. You know, that's everything I ever wanted in my life.
I think he developed a new chapter of capturing the bands here at the Saint. He's going up to PNC Bank to cover a show, and then he tells me, and then I'm going to Starland, and then I'll be back at the Stone Pony by midnight. Now, come on. That's dedication. He's a special person, and they're hard to come by today.
I've been clean and sober over 28 years. So that is so far gone from my life, but it's always right there in front of me. Whatever you think your life is right now, it can get better. It can grow into something more than what you think it can. And so I always wanted my story to be about that. Everybody who has been out there for me and supportive of what I've done, that's what keeps me going. You know, I want to thank everybody for doing what they do for me, and the respect and the loyalty and all those things that, you know, I live by. Thank you.
I don't know why I got choked up, but I got choked up. How did he get me? How do you make me get choked up?